Kia koto, welcome. Thank you for spending a bit of your afternoon with me. Um, the Hopefully you're all here for the Doctor of Education 2023 webinar. I'm Joe Smith, and I appreciate everyone's flexibility and patience as we dealt with first Cyclone Gabrielle, and then I managed to catch COVID, and I am back in action, but still having moments where I cough and moments where I have COVID brain. So excuse me if I have any of those happen this afternoon. Let's go ahead and start with a karakia. So this is one that I quite like for the emphasis on unity and well-being. So you can read along with me if you like. Tutawa mai runga, tutawa mai raro, tutawa mai roto, tutawa mai waho. Kia to ai te mori tu, te mori ora, ki te katoa homai huiai taikie. Thank you all for coming. Again, I see a couple more in the participant list. So what you're all here for is to find out about our Doctor of Education, the EDD or the EdD, whichever one of those suits you. And I love this program. So I'm the program director, and this is the same role that I had at my last institution. You can probably tell I'm not a Kiwi. And so when I was at University of Oregon, I had this same role. And our dean there used to say that the EdD was the most important degree, not just in the Faculty of Education, but in the whole university, because the people who went through that program, they made things happen. And so that was really great to have the dean's support there. Here and in Auckland, our dean did an EDD. So he went through the program himself and very much sees the benefit of the program focus on professionals and on developing practitioner experts and leaders. He is someone who really felt that the cohort nature was what attracted him to the EDD, as it does many of the people who take that path. And the aspect of looking at a problem of practice. So your thesis for the EDD is grounded in theory, it's grounded in paradigms, but it's looking at a problem of practice, usually a persistent problem of practice, usually the thing that you wake up in the morning determined to solve, and yet you keep finding barriers to solving that problem. And so it's what you're passionate about trying to change. It's what you're hoping further study will enable you to change and enable you to lead change efforts in your school or in your organization. And so it's cohort-based, especially for those first 2 years when you're taking part-time coursework. But we've made some amendments to the program where even after those first 2 years of part-time coursework, the cohort nature will be maintained through some continuation seminars. So everyone might gather to talk about interview techniques, or everyone might gather to talk about data collection. Everyone might gather to talk about how to present your study results. And so things that are common across the group will be reasons to come together after those first 2 years. The other thing to say about the 2023 EDD is that it will be a faculty-wide cohort. And so typically, and Mirko has just joined us, and he'll talk about his experiences in a minute. He was situated in one school that ran the EDD for the coursework portion, and they were tightly interested in a common theme. For this cohort, we're trying something different. We're doing a faculty-wide cohort where some of your lecturers will be from each of the schools within the Faculty of Education and Social Work, and your supervisors can be drawn from across the different schools. And so if you haven't yet spent much time digging into the Faculty of Education and Social Work website, please do so. You'll see that we have 5 schools. And so as you're thinking about what is driving you to seek further study, what is that problem of practice that keeps you up at night, that wakes you up with a passion to improve outcomes for your learners, think about, are you situated in counseling, human services, and social work? Are you situated in critical studies and education, curriculum and pedagogy, learning development, and professional practice, which is where I am, or Te Punawanaga, the School of Maori and Indigenous Education? And if your answer is any of those, then this could be the program for you. So let's talk a little bit about let's just have a brief look at some of our current students and graduates, and then I will hand it over to Mirko. So we've got a range of people who come in from different professional backgrounds and then who end up in different places afterwards. So we've got Mary, who is currently a doctoral candidate, and she's deputy principal at Takapuna Grammar. And I think, again, this notion of the importance of the cohort is what anyone who goes through the EdD will say. It's the fact that it's not just an individual PhD project, as Maya talks about there in the middle, and it's giving you the tools, the knowledge, and the skills to better advocate for whānau, as Verapeti says in that third box there. And it's really the sense of spending this chunk of time to be mentored by the cohort leads, by the lecturers, by the supervisors, to be able to have expertise, to feel that you are equipped to tackle that problem of practice that is the one that is most pressing, and those skills and that knowledge can be translated for the rest of your career. So let me turn it over to Mirko. He's kind enough to spend a bit of his evening with us, so I will let him talk to you all now.
Tēnā koutou katoa, can you hear me all right?
Yep, you're great.
Oh, that's good. Well, it's a pleasure, Joe, to be part of your Zoom, and also Joe is my supervisor, so I have to suck up in any case. No, that's not what I'm doing. I've got the dubious honor that I had started a PhD once, 20 years ago. And so I can compare a little bit what they were like, because I didn't go through with that one. It was in maths, not in maths education as my current EdD. And that was quite a lonely time, because I was stuck in an office and I knew I wanted to quit when my supervisor told me back then, well, Mirko, you have to accept that you will spend weeks in your office without talking to anyone. And I just went, I'm gonna die somewhere in the corner, shrivel up, curl up, and so that's not what I wanted for my experience, and that was one of the reasons the EdD was very attractive to me, because I'm quite gregarious and I like bouncing ideas off of other people, because it has to get out of my head first before it makes sense to me. And so that's one reason why I chose the EdD, to have a bunch of people, cohorts to go with, and to support each other. And we did. We had and still have a WhatsApp group called EdD Survivors, where we we would text each other all the time, especially in the early years. Um, and the other thing was also, I thought it would be nice to be paced a little bit, to have classes, which are sort of extra, right? Because you're still doing all the work of a PhD, but then you have some extra classes. But to me, that was attractive because it's a bit of a pacing going on, keeps you on track, gives you structure, which I personally really like and probably need, especially in those early years where it's so wide open. What are you going to do? You can go anywhere with it, and so having some parameters, some structure around it, um, I think was really great. And it's also what some of those comments said. And Maya is actually my boss, who was on the previous slide, and so I witnessed the last couple years of her at D firsthand. So what they said is you have access to supervisors that you don't usually have access to, because you can't really go around to faculty and, I don't know, have 20 different coffees with 20 different people. Although people are pretty good if you ask them. But in the ED, they were kind of brought to you. So I remember once we did a speed dating with a couple of experts, and that was really brilliant. And I just picked their brain for all it was worth, all I could get out in that half hour, or however long we had. And so that was also really super useful. So particularly those first couple years where you're trying to shape it all and put it all together and don't know what the heck you're doing. In my case, it was really useful to have that cohort where you could get in there together and learn together and be exposed to these ideas together. And then also talk to each other a lot about what are you doing, what am I doing. And I got a lot of helpful feedback from my peers, actually, because it's a bit less judgmental. If you speak to a researcher, you kind of don't want to look stupid. But with peers, we could be brutally honest and just say, look, I've got no clue what this is about you. And then we were able to get somewhere kind of together. And morally as well, that support, that you could text each other and go, I'm so freaked out about the thing due next week. I have no idea. I'm stuck. I'm lost. And so people would text and were quite supportive with it, um, and would help you survive, survive through. And so now that we are in the last third of it, there's less going on in the WhatsApp. Um, and we are much more individualized now in these years. However, it's those early years where it all had to first be structured together. That's when I think, for me, it was the most necessary to have that scaffolding and that comradeship together. Yeah, I've sort of talked myself empty now. What else should I talk about, Joe? Or does someone have a question?
This is great. There is a Q&A function if people have questions. I think it's just always good hearing from someone who's in it. And so I think having you on to give that authentic voice that I could say it's a great program, but the program director isn't going to say otherwise. And so I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
it's
Yeah, no,
it's
I
great to.
thoroughly recommend it, especially if some of my reasons resonate with people. Then I think the ED is really great for that. If you're a creature that just wants to be by themselves in an office for weeks at a time and not talk to anyone, well, then maybe, maybe PhD will work out okay for you. But I knew for me, I wouldn't last just by myself, by my lonesome. And then it's also very dependent on supervisors. And if you're not lucky like I am, and have Joe, you don't know what's going to happen, and and sometimes you get a supervisor, they end up being busy, and then you've got nothing else, nowhere else to turn. Whereas in the ED you have a big structure around you and heaps of people that you can access, and so it's not so dependent.
So I can tell you've been working on your thesis because your hands seem to have a pen on them.
Oh
Show
yeah,
me here.
no, yeah, pen. Yeah, I do have pen.
This shows you've been hard at work. Good, good, good.
Yeah.
So Mirko, just give us the elevator pitch of what your thesis is about.
So my thesis is situated in parental involvement in mathematics, because mathematics is my background and my passion. Uh, and so I'm creating an online course for parents of primary students, to help them help their kids in maths. because in my literature review, I identified that there are a lot of parents out there in the whole world that want to help their kids, but they don't really know how. And a lot of them aren't really connecting with teachers, and teachers are busy, etc. So I thought it'd be interesting to have a third party support for them to help their kids in maths. And so that's what I'm trying to create, or have tried to create, with parent participants. I've got 12, 13 parents, local ones, and we're doing this design-based research methodology where we designed an online course together. I built it, but they told me what to put in it. And we went through a few iterations of changing it, improving it. And so I've finished my data collection now. Um,
Yay!
yes. And so over the next year or two, um, I will write it all up and analyze it, and come up with my final recommendation for this online course, and what could be in it and what I found. That was more than a minute. Sorry, Joe.
No, that's good. That's good. It was a long elevator. It's a tall building. Uh, so you did get a question. It says, Kira Mirko, what does a typical day or week look like for your studies/work?
Now, mine is sort of a bit punctuated, if that's the term. So now some students, they like to do regular, really regular time. And so someone on, I think, the previous program to us, we were told, would get up at 4 every day and do 4 to 7 or something, or 4 to 8, every day. Now, I don't get up at 4. So I did actually the other day. I woke up at 3, and I ended up working on my ED from 4 to 7, which was quite good. But it's not a regular thing that I do. And another one, we were told, just blocked out her Sunday, and on all Sunday, and that's the only time in the week she worked on her ED. But on Sunday, it was like, it's like in the prison where they bring foods to your door. That's how her family did it for her. They just put food in front of the door, knocked, twice, and then disappeared, and the mom just opened the door, pulled in the food, shut the door. To be honest, and that's all she did. And then she didn't touch the ED Monday through Saturday. For me, I put in big spurts, and I also teach full time, and I have kind of ups and downs in the teaching. So I have weeks where I do no teaching, and so I try to go hard in those weeks, and just kind of go a few hours at a time, or sometimes the whole day, and I find I get a lot done once I'm in the flow. So this is quite personal, I think, how you work best, but it is a bit of time. Um, However, you can find ways to speed yourself up, I think. Like for me, it's doing chunks, big chunks at a time, and I get in the flow, and I get a lot done, I feel, in those hours.
Great. Well, thank you, Mirko. I don't see any other questions. I appreciate you jumping on and spending a bit of your evening with us, and always good to see you. And we have a supervision meeting coming up, I think. So
Yeah, it will
I'll
be
see
next
you
week.
soon.
Thank you, Joe.
All right.
Thanks,
And
everyone.
I see Tanya has joined us. So Kira, Tanya, do you want to just introduce yourself really briefly?
Sure. Talo Falava. Everyone, my name is Tanya. I'm based at the Epsom campus. And I had the privilege of being involved with the EDD cohort that began in the middle or at the beginning of 2021. And it was located within Te Punawananga School for Māori and Indigenous Education. It was quite a big cohort. About 20 students. And yes, I think the point that Mirko made about having a chance to interact and mix with several different experienced potential supervisors, possibly more importantly, people who were experienced with research, with a range of different topics and ideas and experiences, is an important part of that initiation or socialization into the culture, I suppose, of doctoral level work. I think the EDD program is, and the way it's structured is a really important alternative pathway for those, as Mirko said, who are not in position perhaps to full-time study, are professionals who have other commitments, but are committed as well to devoting some of their time to study over the next, over the 2 part-time years. I can appreciate that there is, for those students who are teaching, school or early childhood center leaders, that it's not, there's multiple commitments to juggle when they make that decision to do a doctoral program like the EDD. And that helps, the EDD provides a certain structure, which is helpful for them as they manage and navigate other commitments that they're not in a position to leave aside for a while, family, work, and so forth. And so the community that the cohort can develop becomes really important to the experience, not just the lecturers, academics, researchers visiting, clever people from afar, but the cohort itself is key to the motivation, key to sharing experiences and learning from them. I observed over the first 2 years of the cohort we just sort of worked with, they had their confirmation at the end of last year. I observed the really close ties that they were able to develop one with another. They set up their own Facebook page and all sorts of social media things to help them keep connected and to help support each other. And there's no way we as cohort leaders could have been able to provide that in addition to what we were trying to do in terms of time, attention, and so forth. And so, yes, I value the EDD, hence my putting my hand up to Joe and saying, yes, I'll be glad to help support this particular intake, this new cohort. I think it provides, it's meaningful, helpful pathway, which is just as valid and legitimate as a PhD.
Sure, Tanya. Thank you. Thank you. As we're going through the slides, feel free to chime in, Tanya, if I miss anything. And if, as we're talking, if people have questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A. So I know everyone is curious to know what this program entails. And so as we've been saying, this faculty-wide cohort, the 2023 intake, is broadly conceived to cover each of the schools in the faculty, to be about learning to lead social transformation. And so we're imagining people who have a passion and who want to be change agents in your workplace, in your community, in society at large. You may be in a school, you may be in a nonprofit, you may be in a advocacy group, and you want to gain the knowledge and skills to go from having a passion and an interest to making real positive change. And so for those first 2 years, that is the top component. That's where you'll take 4 30-point courses, so 1 a semester for 2 years. And it's preparing you to undertake independent research. So that means delving into the prior studies on your selected topic. That means learning about different research methods that you might undertake. And it means working with the cohort leaders and the lecturers from across the schools that have, like Tanya, put up their hand to be part of this, as well as potentially research supervisors from any one of the faculty's schools. So that part is part-time for everyone. After that first after those first 2 years, you have the option to stay part-time or to transition into full-time. You still will have some times to meet with your cohort, some continuation seminars, but really part B is the research component. It's where you're working more closely with your supervisors and you're undertaking your research project. So to get into all of that a little more, the part A, those 4 courses in the whole part A, what we're equipping you to do is to become critical thinkers, to become researchers, and to become academic writers. So it may have been a while since you did your master's. It may have been a while since you've really engaged with academic writing, with reading journal articles, with creating ideas that you then want to research. And so that first section, the first part, those 2 years, are about reintroducing you to a lot of what you may have done in your master's, but it's bringing it to that next level. It's doctoral level critical thinking, researching, and academic writing. And so those first 2 courses are helping you identify your specific area of interest, the scope of what you're interested in. Are you interested in a problem of practice in that's specific to secondary schools, helping you to engage with the literature in your selected field, and helping you draft research questions. So the shorthand is the what. What are you actually going to look at? Year 2 is the how. So how might you actually investigate your chosen area of interest through a methodological approach that will help you answer research questions of interest, and each of the parts builds into that final 30-point course, which is the second semester of the second year, which will be the first semester of 2025, and that's in the thesis proposal. So that's the taught component. In part B, you start by submitting your proposal at the end of part A. You have a public confirmation seminar, as Tanya was saying, that Tipuna did at the end of last year. And then after that, you're officially a candidate and welcomed into part B. And so this is when you conduct your research. And conducting your research is just really step 1 of part B. It's conducting it, but then you have to figure out what it means. And so data analysis, reporting on your findings, figuring out the implications for practice, for policy, for future research, that's all part of that 2 years, full-time or 4 part-time years, where again, we'll gather in continuation seminars to talk about common aspects of the research process that's undertaken during the thesis component. But a lot of your time will be spent working under the guidance of your 2 supervisors. So during that portion, during part B, you'll enroll in 240 points of 897 thesis. And then at the end, you have external examiners and an oral examination. So that's the structure of the program. What I'm really excited about right now is we are in the process of updating or refreshing our graduate profile. And this is not even hot off the press because it's still in draft form. So I don't think Tanya will even have seen it yet, but it is what will help guide the work in those 2 years of part-time coursework, but also in the research portion of the degree. And so it's, to me, this really helps give a place-based aspect of this degree. So you are doing not just an EDD, but you're doing it here in Aotearoa. And so what does that mean? What are graduates of this program? What do we envision you'll be able to do? And so we start with Waipapa Haringa Waka, the mooring post, which is about connecting to place. And it's with the goal of having thriving and equitable communities. And so, as I said from the start, we imagine there's some persistent challenge, some persistent problem or practice that wakes you up in the middle of the night, that gets you out of bed and makes you want to learn more. And the graduates of this program, we will support you in designing and conducting research in ways that recognize treaty obligations, that recognize the cultural context of where this place is, and that helps promote equity. Oh, I just had the dog come in to say hello. Hello, little dog. So each of these themes in the refreshed graduate profile really speaks to the EdD here in Aotearoa, here in the context that we're all in. And so whether you have spent your life here or whether you're a New Zealander like myself, there are things that connect us to this place. And so Waipapa Ki Uta, the landing place, helps us think about how this degree connects to place for sustainable and enduring partnerships. And so thinking about interdependence, thinking about a future focused on sustainable and desirable conditions, thinking about the values that we want to have as leaders and develop in those that we're leading around justice, equity, responsibility, ethics. These are all the types of ideals that drive the EdD. And so we've got several more, and again, in crafting these, and they are just in draft form, but in crafting them, I was able to think about what is it that's special about this place. And so one of those I think that is really special about this place is in this theme, Waipapa Ngā Maunga Whakahi, Land of Proud Mountains, and thinking about how we have educational theory, but then we have professional practice. And so some of those mountains might be taken from a range of disciplines, from a range of perspectives, some of those major paradigms, some of the key debates, and thinking about how to not just locate ourselves in this place, but how to have robust inquiry. We want to scale those mountains. We want to recognize our place in the Pacific and think about how to critically engage with the problems of 2023 and beyond. And so it's not about learning a set of facts or a set of skills that worked in the past. It's about really being innovative in the research projects. So last two, Waipapa Tatai Hono, ancestral ties, looking at the how to communicate in building relationships. It could be for how we interview people, how we collect data. It could be how we write material. It could be how we disseminate our results. It could be how we collaborate meaningfully with people, not just in the program, but outside of the program. And then finally, we've got Waipapa Tangata Row, the place of great people, and thinking about how we can act in principled ways, how we can create these flourishing relationships that show the importance of Onongatanga and reciprocity, that we're not just studying others, we're having a reciprocity in the act of producing research. And so this is about having resilience. It's about, again, thinking about how the research we conduct now will have implications for the future. So this graduate profile, once it's finalized, will be something that the course lecturers refer to as we're selecting readings, as we're crafting assessments, as we're guiding you on your journey. It will be something that we strive to live by in the work that we all do. Let me just pause for a minute. All right, I see a couple questions. Let me just check if they are. Good. So questions about when the courses are offered. So we see this program as serving people who are professionals, who are working your typical day job, whether that's in a school or elsewhere. And so the courses are often done as a block format, whether that's an all-day Friday, Saturday, or whether that's a week during the teaching break. It tends not to be the weekly 3-hour block after a full day of work, as you may have had in your master's program. And so the idea is that you're working full-time and you're a student part-time. That's the way that we see this program working. Another question that's come up is, do you have to find a supervisor before you apply? And the answer is no. So we will spend time in the first semester meeting with potential supervisors across the faculty, and then you'll have finalized your supervisors by the end.
Excuse me, Joe.
Yep.
Somebody who did apply for the EDD, they're asked to nominate a name.
And so
it doesn't mean, yeah. And eventually that person who's named is contacted. They might get a bit of a surprise. Oh, you know, so I think, you know, there is a bit of needing to reach out to find a name or person who's, but that doesn't mean that it's a commitment to be the supervisor after 2 years.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so there might be, you know, we might need to talk a bit further about the fact that the initial formal application needs to name somebody. Should they just name us?
Yep. So that's often, yep, exactly. That's often what we do, is just have the cohort leads as the placeholder supervisors. Yep.
If we could do, you know, answer it in that way, you know, I'll be quite happy to be named all over the place.
Yeah.
Then I won't be shocked, but you know, but more about it's not necessarily someone, it's to fill that formality, but we you know, but during the 2 years, the 2-year part A, it's then finding the supervisors that will best fit what you're doing.
Yes, exactly. Thanks,
Go
Tanya.
ahead and use our names in vain.
Yes, please do. The second part of that question that was posted is the program open to international students? And it depends on your circumstance. If you need to be a full-time student for your visa, then the answer is no, because this is a part-time program, especially for those first 2 years. But if you have residency, if you came over as an international student for your master's and you've gone through a residency visa, then you can indeed take part-time study. And so it will be up to your individual circumstance. But I know the PhD students who are international students need to be full-time for their visa purposes. And so in that case, the EDD wouldn't work for you. So some of these can be discussed on an individual basis with admissions. I will also stay after if people have individual questions about your individual circumstances. Because we've had a delay with the cyclone and then me catching COVID, we are starting to be at the end of needing to make your decision about whether you're going to apply. You've still got you've got April, you've got a solid month in there, but you need to have made your decision to apply by the 1st of June. And why that is, even though we don't start until July, is the School of Graduate Studies has transitioned to 4 application deadlines per year that are linked to doctoral scholarships. And so during Part A, EDD students can be eligible for a scholarship that pays your tuition and your student services fee. And so that's a nice perk. And if you're awarded a scholarship at the start, it will automatically go into a stipend if you elect to go full time. And so that's something that I think each cohort typically has a couple of students who are awarded scholarships, and that's just a nice way to be able to support your studies. So it's applications are due by the 1st of June, and what you actually need to keep in mind is the entry requirements. So a GPA or a GPE of 6.0, and then there's a range of ways to a range of pathways. You don't have to have done a master's. You could have a bachelor honors degree. What you do need to have done is a minimum 30-point research project. And so that can be in your honors year if you're coming straight from a bachelor degree, or it can be a 30-point or more master's thesis. And so what we are looking for is the ability to research. We say independently, obviously it's with supervision, but you can't come in without some research experience. We also are expecting, because this is a professional degree, we're expecting that you have at least 2 years professional experience in an education or education related field. So maybe you're not in a school, but maybe you teach in a museum, or maybe you're in a position where you're hoping to be a lecturer at a university. So being, maybe you're a PTF currently, professional teaching fellow. So you need to have some professional experience, and really without that, you probably don't have a practice that you want to spend 4 to 6 years studying. And then again, this question of of whether international students are eligible. It will depend on your student visa requirements, but the program itself is based in New Zealand. We tend to have these in-person cohort meetings that are, like I said, maybe once a month on a Friday, Saturday, or maybe for a week during a teaching break. And so it isn't a Zoom-based degree, assuming we stay out of lockdown. So what you actually do if you're keen to apply is to complete the online application for admission, and there's the website there. And this goes to Tanya's point that if you when you're applying, you should make sure that you are picking Doctor of Education, not PhD. And I think they may have changed the form that you don't have to nominate supervisors. If you still do, you could put our names down. And so either way, don't let that trip you up. The university's applications and admissions team, School of Graduate Studies, initially assess your application and will let you know if you need to provide any additional information, any additional paperwork, but otherwise that is the process. So I will open it up to questions, which I see one has come through. So let me take a look there. So is it possible to be overseas for some of the program? So I would say probably. In terms of where you conduct your research, that shouldn't be a problem. For the coursework, we will, I know with the last couple of cohorts, they've come up with the schedule for the courses at the start of the 2-year Part A. And so knowing when you have in-person class and when you'll be meeting with the lecturers on Zoom, if that's the way we decide to do it, you could certainly, you're certainly allowed to travel. And so that's the best answer I could give at this moment. Another question is coming in saying, is July the only cohort for this year? Yes. And so next year, we haven't decided yet if we're going to start in March or in July again. We tend to have one cohort per year, typically, not always, but typically it's one cohort per year and either a March or a July start. And so that's what we've got for this year. If you're in a position where you haven't done a research project, if you had a fully taught master's, potentially we could do a bridging program where you would do a research project this year and then be eligible to start next year. But otherwise, the July start is the one we're working on. Anything else? Any other questions? Tanya, what did I forget? Oh, you're muted. Let's see.
I don't think you've forgotten anything. No, I don't think you've forgotten anything.
All right. Well, we can let people either go out and enjoy the last little bit of sunshine out my window, or start working on those applications. So thank you for coming this afternoon. Thank you for your interest. If you want to be in touch, I think you can find us on the website and just send us emails and we will be happy to talk more with you. So thank you, everyone.